Everyone, Christian here, and this is going to be the second part of the three-part magical island tour, we can call it. And so the second island, I'm sure many of you would have guessed that this island would be on this list, is Madagascar. Even though it's further away from me than the third island, if you're heading west to east, it is the second island on the journey. So Madagascar is an island in the Indian Ocean that is a little bit off the African continent, the Southeast African continent, and it borders. Most of it is in the tropics, but part of it is south of the Tropic of Capricorn, so it actually kind of lies in a subtropical area. And as a result, a lot of the palms that come from the island are a little bit cold hardy, and you don't see a lot of real tropical plants that actually grow in Madagascar. Most of the tropical palms that grow in Madagascar grow on the north end of the island, the Massawa Peninsula. So, really, no discussion of palms would be complete without Madagascar, and no discussion of Madagascar palms would be complete without discussing Dyspsis, which probably has more species of any palm in its genus than any other genus in the palm family. I want to say, as of the making of the last Palms of Madagascar book, there was like 285 species, which is quite a bit. There's probably well over 300 now that are named, and there's probably another 100 that haven't been named or have been named kind of with odd names. So Dyspsis is in the Arecoid family, so it's related to Areca and Pananga and those other more tropical plants, but most of them exhibit subtropical characteristics that make them great growers in a lot of areas such as Florida, California, the Mediterranean, Australia, and other temperate, more like warm, temperate, and warm Mediterranean climates that that allow such a diverse amount of plants to grow because of its ability to withstand some cold. And so, sorry, my voice is still a little bit shot from last night. So Dyspsis kind of, like I said, dominates the island. You'll find really small tropical Dyspsis towards the north end of the island, and you'll find larger solitary trunked ones towards the south and east end of the island. So to give you an example, Dyspsis decarii, the triangle palm, grows at a little bit higher elevation on the south end of the island. So as a result, it's fairly cold hardy. I mean, they can handle into the 20s, and as can Dyspsis leptochilos, the teddy bear palm. I wouldn't say it can handle as much cold, but a decent amount. And palms like that. Dyspsis has its own kind of subfamilies. There used to be like 6 or so. There's Neodyspsis, Chrysalidocarpus, Neophloga, Vonitra, and I can't remember the others. But these were all genera that were all lumped into Dyspsis. That's why it's such a big genus, because it was 6 other genera. It doesn't mean it's going to be a big genus, but they basically said, okay, these all have the same flowering characteristics, and so they just made them all one genus. And not a lot of discovery, not a lot of collecting had really been done on Madagascar until like the 60s and 70s, and even then it was kind of trickling in. So really, you didn't see triangles, teddy bears, those sorts of species coming into Florida or other areas with a lot of landscape cultivation until, say, the 80s and 90s, because these plants really hadn't been discovered. Madagascar was kind of uncharted territory, so to speak. And once these palms started getting discovered, they were like, okay, well, this is a place we need to check out some more. So in the 90s and 2000s, more people went to the island, found more palms growing that were great for subtropical areas, and some of them really have taken off. There's Dyspsis lutescens has kind of always been around a little bit. Dyspsis cabata has an interesting story. I don't know if I've done a video on cabata, but it was found first, I think, in the 1930s, of all places in Cuba, growing. But they couldn't find it in habitat in Madagascar until finally maybe 10 years ago or so. So for almost a century, there was a palm that was obviously not native to Cuba growing there, but they knew it was from Madagascar, but they couldn't find it where. Eventually they did, which is good. It's good that it still has a habitat there somewhere on the island. But you have the clumpers like lutescens, Dyspsis lutescens, Dyspsis pembana, Dyspsis cabata, lanceolata. Then you have a different complex, the Dyspsis baronii, and then you have O'Neillensis, Albofarinosa, Samophylla. All have these kind of like bamboo cane style trunks to them, and they clump in various ways, whether it's really tight clumping or very spread out. So then there's the more tropical types. I like to call them the ankle biters. They tend to be small, near in kind of dwarfish, and they kind of hang around your ankles and knees. And they don't really get a whole lot taller. They eventually do, but it takes a while. And you'll find those in more of the rainforest type areas. They tend to be a little bit less cold hardy. They tend to be a little more ornate. And then there's the palms that people don't really talk about from Madagascar as much. I mean, there's a few, but first of all, one palm that definitely is talked about is Bismarckia. Bismarckia is native to Madagascar. The silver form and the green form, some forms of it. There's actually a Bismarckia called the Mayotte Island form. The Mayotte Islands are off the coast of Madagascar, a little more tropical. The palm itself is really not that. It really just looks like a big green Bismarckia that looks more like a sable, I would say, than a Bismarck. The leaves are not as Costa palmae, so they're flatter, and they actually do terrible in wind and cold. But the silver Bismarckia grows in the north central area of the island, as does another very special palm called Tahina, which is, it looks visually similar to Bismarckia with large palmate leaves, but is actually more closely related to some Southeast Asian palms like Chunio phoenix and Caryodoxa, which are actually small plants. They don't really get a trunk to them. So that was discovered about 10 to 12 years ago, and they're around, but the problem is when a Tahina seeds, it dies. It's monocarpic, one seeding, and seeds only come about when the plant dies. There's only so many of them, so getting seed is almost impossible in between. I mean, it's basically impossible in between, finding plants that are actually dying and seeding. So, Bismarckia has obviously been a huge hit in, I know in almost all of Florida, a lot of California and other areas like Texas. I'm sure in Australia, in Thailand, most of the rest of Southeast Asia, and pretty much anywhere that in the subtropics where there's a lot of sun, they're kind of a real sun-loving plant. So you have all those different types of Dyspsis. You have the Bismarckia, Tahina, and then you have a couple other weird species that grow up in the northern peninsula. You have Varieties gerardii, which is related. They call it the forest coconut. It has one of the toughest seeds I've ever seen. I never really tried to break one open, but I could imagine it would take quite a bit of force, which is basically unavailable now because they don't allow importation of the seed. It's on CITES, which is the Center of International Trade of Endangered Species. A lot like how you can't import a tiger without a permit. You can't import certain plants without permits, and there are actually not that many palms that are on this list, but most of the ones from this list on CITES Appendix 1, meaning that they're need a permit to be exported and imported, are usually palms from Madagascar due to the deforestation of the island. So Vuonioala is on that list. Then also Beccario phoenix is on that list, not Alfredii, which a lot of people are familiar with, but the original Madagascariensis. And there's three species: Madagascariensis, which is what we know as the window pane palm. And there's Madagascariensis is what they call the coastal form. Beccario phoenix fenestralis is the window pane palm. In Latin, fenestralis means having a window. Fenes means Fenes means window in Latin. So then you have Alfredii. They call it the Highland coconut. So there's a lot of common names of coconuts in a lot of the palms of Madagascar. Excuse me. And then also you have Lemuro-phoenix, which is named after lemurs, and that's quite a beautiful plant. When seed first came out, it was almost impossible to germinate. I had a hard time germinating it, and thankfully, a few people were able to obtain the plant in Hawaii and other very tropical areas, grow it up, and now produce seed, because it is also on CITES and can't be imported anymore without special permits and finding someone that will actually go and get the seed. And there's a few other abstract palms that do grow there. There's a palm that's really, I call it the understory Bismarckia. It's known as Saturnala decusselvi, and you won't really find it anywhere. I've only had seed of it once in a couple plants. It's not the prettiest looking plant. It looks kind of like the old world version of like a big sable minor, but it's so slow that it really takes a collector with a lot of heart to want to grow a palm like that, as long as it would take to grow it. But still, it's different, and of course I ordered the seed when I could, and that's all. I believe that's also on CITES, so it's not really available anymore, unfortunately. As far as other species, Borassus does grow on the island. There's Borassus madagascariensis, and but yeah, really, it's dominated by Dyspsis, but with obvious other genera that are on the island. Now, there's two others that I forgot that are actually some of my favorite. The first one is Massawala. Massawala is the name of the peninsula where the tropical area is, and the palm has nice, large, sometimes undivided leaflets. And there's two species, Massawala kona and Massawala madagascariensis, both of which are very cool. A little bit hard to grow, but again, they're different. If you can find some, find one that's in good shape, pick it up if it's not too expensive. The second one is one of my favorite palm genera, Merogesia, and there's Merogesia darianii and Merogesia insignis. And Merogesia darianii is on CITES thanks to that special veterinarian that collected so many of them and cut down so many of the trees. And it's unfortunate, but it still is. It's in cultivation. There's seed being produced in Hawaii and other areas like Australia, and you can get the palm, if you'd like to. It's not readily available, but it's around. But it's a beautiful plant. It requires a lot of humidity, a lot of water. It grows in peat bogs on hillsides. Like on the hill, you have a little bit of like a pond or a swamp, and they kind of grow in there. So it's one of the coolest looking palms in my opinion. Because of it doesn't really like getting dried out at all, so it doesn't do that well here in Florida unless you have some understory canopy and a lot of irrigation. But again, all these palms, they're just so diverse. You have Dyspsis, this relatively, I don't want to say normal, but there's so many varieties of it, so many colors. There's Dyspsis with purple, black, green, white, yellow crowns to them, and which is so rarely seen in many areas of the world. And then you have these large undivided leaf palms that they're this massive Jurassic giants. So unfortunately, Madagascar is pretty unregulated when it comes to building and basically cutting down the forest. If you have money and you're able to, you want to build a farm, people will just kind of keep on chopping down stuff. And there's probably several species of palm that have gone extinct because of this. So, there's not a whole lot we can do. I mean, there is a lot that, people can do to try and stop this. But as far as the government's concerned, they really don't care a whole lot about it happening, apparently, because they seem to continue to allow it. And also Madagascar was a lot more accessible 10 years ago, and it seems to have kind of closed down for business. One of the greatest people to kind of help get seed out of Madagascar, his name was Alfred. I can't pronounce his last name because in Malagasy it's just a very long name. But it's the person that Varieties alfredii is named after. He would have a list of seeds that were available, and he sustainably sourced the seeds and was able to kind of get it out to the to the public, so to speak. But a lot of palm collectors have gone to Madagascar, collected seed themselves, were able to see a lot of things in person that were just amazing. And I've heard nothing but like the coolest stories from the country there. So hopefully in the future, Madagascar can be more sustainable and kind of get through that instead of just cutting everything down for farming. And but we have so many palms uh, in our landscape today because of things that do grow in Madagascar. Like I said, triangle palms, Dyspsis lutescens, the Areca palm, and all its cousins, and Bismarckia, just to name a few. So that's why Madagascar is one of those magical islands. You don't see any of these palms growing, west into Africa. You don't see them growing up into India, which is kind of the nearest thing to the north and east, and you don't see it growing in the Arabian Peninsula to the direct north. So they just all kind of exist on this island, and the island itself kind of has this enigma, kind of like Cuba. Whether you watch the movie Madagascar or just heard stories about it, it's quite an interesting country to say the least. I wish I can go there someday when the price of a plane ticket goes down. So anyway, I don't want to make this too long, but I hope you enjoyed this little talk on Madagascar. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel and you want to see more videos like this and other palm reviews, go ahead and subscribe. And if you have any questions about palms from Madagascar, including, before I should mention this, the Palms of Madagascar book, the book on the actual palms, is as big as the Encyclopedia of Cultivated Palms, and it's only getting bigger. It's a great book if you're willing to spend close to $100. It's a great resource for looking at palms that do grow there. And it does have great color pictures and a lot of descriptions. And I do have that book, so I would recommend it, having read quite a bit of it. So anyway, if you have any questions about Madagascar, palms from Madagascar, or just in general that grow there, go ahead and leave it down below. And I hope everyone has a good weekend, and I'll see you guys later. All right.